Many of us have been raised to find prayer a process that is boring and not understood. It's too long, it's too regimented, it's too impersonal, it's in a foreign language, and the last thing we want to do is open up a siddur or a Jewish prayer book and try to pray. I believe that the real reason why such a problem exists is that most of us were taught that prayer is an avoda shebepeh. It's a service of the mouth. And it's really supposed to be an avoda shebelev, a service of the heart. How do we internalize our davening, our prayer, to make it coming from our hearts rather than from our mouths? First off, I maintain that if you truly believe that God loves you and that He is approachable, as we mentioned earlier, then pouring out your heart to Him will come naturally. It's very easy to go over to someone who you love and you know loves you and speak your heart and speak your mind. How and when should I do that? I would suggest that there are two options. You can do it within the framework of the classical prayer book, or you can do it on your own. Possibly a combination of the two offers the best option. Allow me to elaborate. First of all, if you are praying from a prescribed prayer service, stop running through it. Prayer is not part of the NASCAR circuit. You're better off, much better off, praying less in terms of how many pages you cover and contemplating the words. Allow yourself to think about the words that are meaningful to you. Repeat a phrase that is speaking to you several times before going on. Savor them. Enjoy them. Pour out your heart to God. Let me give you some examples that I use when I pray. Do you feel that your life is being wasted? That you're not fulfilling your potential? Why don't you tell that to God? In our morning prayers, we quote King David in Psalm 30 as saying, Ma betza bidami biridti al shachas. What gain is there with my blood when I descend to nothingness? God, why have you created me if I am to end up as nothing? Cry to Him. Let Him know how you feel seeing your life a waste. Unburden yourself to Him. Are you heartbroken? Heartbroken about hurt you have suffered? Heartbroken for having hurt others? Heartbroken because you feel the mistakes that you have made put you in a place where you have no one to love and you feel no one loves you? Well, we read Psalm 147 every morning. Harofe l'shvurei lev u'mechabesh la'atzavosa. He is the healer of the brokenhearted and the one who binds up their sorrows. Get angry with God. Ask Him how it can be that He is allowing you to remain brokenhearted when He can heal you. Only He can bind up your sorrows. Demand of Him to bind them up. By acknowledging that only He has the ability to heal you and make you whole, you can then take Him to task for not doing so. And don't be afraid to be a bit creative and move beyond the simple and obvious meaning of the words. Let me give you an example. In the morning blessings, we mention Rokah ha'oretz al hamoyim, that God spreads out the earth upon the waters. Simply put, this is an acknowledgement of God's activities at the time of creation. If you're afraid about global warming, I guess you can use this as an opportunity to approach God about your fears of coastal cities flooding as the ice caps melt and ocean levels rise. But recently, one morning I was feeling overwhelmed as my family has been going through a difficult time financially. And as I said that blessing, I was thinking to myself that people often view adversity and trouble as waves coming over them. As I recited this blessing, my intent was, God, you don't allow the water to overcome the land. In the same way, you can't allow my troubles to overcome me. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov writes that as one reads Tehillim Psalms and repeats the words of King David, each time they appear in the first person, the reader should not think to himself that they refer to King David, but rather he should apply them to himself. This is not true just in Psalms, but throughout all of prayer, one needs to read the words and apply them to himself. These ideas have all been geared to using the standard prayer text as a guide. But you can also completely ad-lib your own prayers to God at any time that you feel comfortable or you feel a need to do so. There's another prerequisite for successful prayer. Prayer needs to be done in a frame of mind of joy and not one of depression. It's fine to be brokenhearted, but not depressed. What's the difference? So Rabbi Nachman of Breslov explains that depression is closely related to anger and is born of frustration. He says that's not the proper frame of mind to approach God. But brokenhearted is a feeling of disappointment in one's self and one's situation, and pouring one's heart out to God for help to come close to Him again. In order to accomplish this, your self-image plays a major role. Rabbi Nachman gives us an interesting insight. The Torah tells us that we are commanded to give each and every single person the benefit of the doubt. And he explains that even if you know that a person is faulty and has committed many sins, you should look at him and find the good within him. He says, find the areas in the person's life in which he is not acting improperly. And when you focus on the other person's good points, you bring them to the fore. And if you continue to do that, focus on someone else's good points constantly, you will notice that over time, his weak points will dissipate, and all he'll be left with are his good points. And he says the same is true, even more so, when it comes to how you think about yourself. You might look at yourself and see all the things that you've done which you feel you shouldn't have done. And maybe you've done a lot of such things. But the worst thing you can do to yourself is allow those thoughts to predominate your thinking. Focus better on the good things that you've accomplished in your life. If you are tough on yourself, even in that case you might say, well, I did some good things, but I did them for ulterior motives. You have to resist that as well. The more you can focus on the good you have done, the more you will bring life to the good parts of yourself.